What's going on, guys? I'm back with a brand new catch-up edition review. And I watched a movie called Creepshow, starring Ted Danson, the one and only Stephen King, and Adrienne Barbeau. First of all, I want to clear something up from the last review. All right, I mentioned Tales from the Crypt, Bordello of Blood, and Tales from the Crypt Demon Knight. Those are not anthologies, and I should know better. I know better. All right, they still suck. All right, it doesn't change the fact that they suck. First of all, for real, I want to talk about a little something different, because the last time I brought this up, it was the curse of sequels. This round, let's talk about the exceptions to the rule. The sequels that are actually better than part 1 and part 3. Okay? We're doing this in phases because this was very hard to scrounge up. Very hard to look for. Phases this time. Phase 1. Superhero movies. Alright? The ones that are obviously better sequels than their counterparts. Okay? Ones like Blade 2, which is still to this very day the top most important sequel of all time, in my opinion. All right, Nosferatu, man, Nosferatu. That's all I gotta say. Then there's Captain America: Winter Soldier, and this is a hard one because Captain America: Civil War was very good too. Trust me. But Winter Soldier is just a whole nother kind of vehicle. All right, this is the cooler version of Captain America, and he's fighting against Captain America. All right, enough said. Then we have movies like Hellboy 2, which is such a good sequel that I keep forgetting what actually happened in part 1. I just don't care anymore. The villain is forgettable, but in part 2, it's definitely not. All right, that villain is bad assery. Okay. Also, movies like Split, which is considered a sequel. All right, to the point that I just, it makes Unbreakable lame, and Unbreakable is a good movie. Okay, in comparison to that, it's very lame. Okay. This to that. Easy. It's easy. Phase 2. Comedies. And trust me, there's a lot more comedies than what I'm mentioning. Just took a long time to just scrounge something up once again. Austin Powers, The Spy Who Shagged Me, had to be the best out of all three of those. Easily. We're not even going to talk about part 3. Not even worth mentioning. Part 1, good, iconic. Not like part 2, man. Part 2 had the spoof of Will Smith's song. It just and Dr. Evil was just, he shined in this one. He shined bright in this one. Okay. Also another comedy that a lot of you are not going to agree with me on. Deuce Bigalow, European Gigolo. Yes, part 1 was iconic and great in every sense of the matter. Great movie. But European Gigolo was funnier. If anybody has not seen it, watch it. You'll see what I'm talking about. You'll understand what I'm talking about immediately. All right? Then there's movies. I'm sorry. Let's step into phase 3. Movies that are arguably better than their counterpart. Because these are the ones that a lot of people are going to be like, oh no, you did not say this is better than. You got to hear me out. Because we got stuff like Gremlins 2. Okay, which a lot of people remember Gremlins 1, and that's the one they want to go off of because they took over the city, and it's the first time you found out about the rules of the water past midnight and all that with Gizmo and all that, right? Okay, and it was on Christmas or something like that. But part 2, it was such a better movie because you had gremlins with different personalities. You had Electro Gremlin and Smart Gremlin. You had Smart Gremlin. You can't beat that. I'm looking for part 3 still. I want part 3. All right. Then there's movies like Bad Boys 2, which is, I don't have to explain much. It was longer, more action, more entertaining. Part 1 was okay, a little funnier, but nah, it just didn't cut it. It didn't cut it. All right. Terminator 2, also more of an entertaining movie. Just more of an entertaining movie than part 1 was a great movie. I'm not gonna keep on running the word iconic into the ground, but it was a classic, right? But part 2 is better soundtrack, everything. It melted in to my brain. Also Hannibal, and this is a hard one, man, because we all loved Silence of the Lambs with the quotes and everything, but Hannibal just took the cake. It took the cake for me. You getting into the mind of Hannibal himself. All right, you're getting a full-fledged front row seat of how this guy gets down, and he showed every part of that. All right, he put that on display. So now we have Creepshow, the first. Will Creepshow be better than Creepshow 2? Or the other way around? We're about to find out. Let's go. Creepshow, for those who don't know, for those who are not aware, unless you just don't like horror like that, or you despise horror to the fullest, you know about Creepshow. Don't play me. You know about Creepshow, man. All right? Or you're stuck in a comic book right now. Okay? Living out some storyline that will not end very well. Trust me. Creepshow. I don't have to explain this. People already know about this movie. Well, most people already know, except for me and a couple other people. It's pretty much a tale of 5 stories, okay, told by the Vault Keeper, or a skeleton with a hoodie on his head, all right, of some very messed up stuff going on through the 80s, all right. You got monsters, you got bugs, you got the undead, all that mixed into this glorious film, all right. And that's the premise of this anthology. Positives. I'd have to say this was, and yes, I'm going to be comparing this to part 2 almost the entire time. I can't help it. All right, this was a lot funnier than part 2. Okay, I'll give it that. It definitely had me rolling and laughing. The storyline with Stephen King and him turning into a plant slowly, it was pure comedy. It was pure comedy. They kept going back to the skits of him imagining what would happen if he brought this meteorite to the scientists, and how the scenario would go every time because he had such bad luck. That was funny. You couldn't take him seriously. He was so dumb. Okay, so just that alone. All right, there are other reasons. There's other funny storylines in there too about the guy who wanted his cake and all that. But enough said on that one. I laughed more than I got scared. We're going to get into that in a minute about the scare part. Another one. This had a great blend of comic book suspense in this. Every time the monster was revealed or people realized they're about to die, you had this background with the colors and just the animated scenery around it. Like they were almost being sucked into the comic book at that point. But they made it, they mixed real life with comic book lore at this point. Because, you know, they used to have a lot of the horror comics back in the day, which I want to come back full strength. Okay? But they did such a perfect job with that you gotta respect it. You gotta respect that. Just to now, scary? No. Entertaining? Very much. To such a high caliber. Okay? And for its time and the time that it came out, that was highly creative. I have to give it that. That was so creative of them to do that. All right, honestly, this being serious, that was so creative of him to do stuff like that, man. Much props for that. All right, and they did this in part 2 too, but not like part 1. Okay, my last positive for this, and it has to do with the best story in this anthology. It goes to the Terror in the Crate. I think that's what it's called. If not, the real name will be at the bottom of the screen. But I'm going to call it the Terror in the Crate because, first of all, the Yeti or the monster or whatever that's supposed to be, imagine get Harry and the Hendersons, the Bigfoot from that story, Harry, just on roids, okay? or methed out or whatever is going on with them, and then put him in this movie. Like Harry's had enough. Harry's had enough. I've been in this box for a long time. I'm grumpy. I'm cramped up. I'm ready to kill. All right, don't mess with me. You've been warned, and they still go for it. And also, there's an annoying character in here that just also hilarious, played by Adrienne Barbeau, actually, just wouldn't stop running her mouth. And if you have any common sense, you kind of can guess things. Okay, not gonna say too much if you haven't seen this movie, but I like where her character was going, and I like where they kind of led her character to. Let's just put it like that. That was intelligent of them to go that route. Also very funny, going back to the humor part of this movie. Humorous as hell. Okay. Such a divine storyline. Gotta say that. Love that. Negatives. My first negative about this, and one of the biggest complaints that I have to have, this was not scary at all. Sad at some points, of course. Very sad. The whole plant man thing. The man was turning into a plant. His life was pretty much over, and he had nothing but bad luck. He never got his good luck streak. So he's turning into a plant. We already know, it's not a spoiler. You can see from the trailer he's turning into a plant. Okay? He's a plant man. And there are some kind of scary parts, like these people come up with I'm sorry, I'm not going to mention that. I'll just go back to the Yeti story. That was kind of scary because the way he was getting at people, the way the Yeti was killing people was ruthless. It was like a dog, like 10 dogs on one person. The characters were a little dumb, on the dumb side, but still, you don't want to get caught up with him. Not with the Yeti. All right? So I respect that. Still not a scary movie at all. Part 2 was a lot scarier, in my opinion. Easily. This, for my second negative, this definitely has the B movie effect to it. All right, what I mean by that, we've all been up late at night watching a whole bunch of just countless movies, and then we see these cheesy horror movies at night that were cheaply made and all this. It has that because this is one thing that keeps happening through the entire movie. It's one trope. You have to explain to me. How is it someone miraculously just comes back from the dead? Okay? Someone, I think this is dealing with the first story, keeps coming to the same gravesite every year. Right? They're telling the new family member about this. All of a sudden, the family member she's coming to visit just comes back alive, or somewhat alive. All right, and why didn't it do this the other years prior to? Right? Why is it decided on this very day or night to pop out of that grave and start doing some killing and asking for his cake? Because he wanted that cake. All right, that didn't make any sense. And then you have the Yeti story. You were in that box all those years. You were in the same spot. This was not nothing new. That box has been there for a long time. You just now want to get out the crate. You just now want to get out that crate. What sense does that even make? All right. What is the rule on that? I wondered the whole time. How did that even happen? There has to be something behind this to support the reason these creatures come alive. Okay. And that doesn't only go for this movie. That goes for a lot of other movies, even some professional ones. All right. My last negative to mention about this, when I compare it, to part 2, the storylines in this movie are fairly weak compared to that. All right. Like I said before, part 2 is a lot scarier, creepier. All right. It has it brings a chill down your body watching part 2. Not with part 1. And the storylines were so quick and they were ran through so fast. It almost was like they were just thinking on the spot about this plot and this plot. Oh, let's throw some plants in there. Or let's just get the first stories from the comic when we open it up. We see the first stories we see. We're putting it in the movie. All right. We're going ahead and let it go in the movie. All right. That's it. We're not going to look too hard for some really good storylines. Let's just do this. We're tired. And that's what it felt like they did. It was very rushed. And I hated that because it could have been a lot better than what they did. All right. In my opinion. You can do better than that. That's why I have to give this an I. Just an I. Okay? Part 2 was a lot better. If you haven't seen Creepshow 2, go watch it. Watch this one too. It's not bad, but it won't compare to part 2. Press that like button, share this, and subscribe if you haven't.